Hey, good afternoon. This is David Brotherton with NIADA Dealer 20 Groups in Education, bringing you another installment of our NIADA 2020 Virtual Convention Education Series. This one's on improving cash flow in your service department. A buy here, pay here service department has two missions for their mission statement, two portions. One is to recondition an appropriate volume of vehicles for sale that both meet your quality standards and are produced in an efficient and cost-effective manner. And then number two, simultaneous yet different, is to provide post-sale repair work to support future cash flows and protect the company's initial investment. Wordy, right? But basically it's two simultaneous jobs. We have to get vehicles ready for sale and keep the costs under control and keep time and quality predictable. And the flip side is we also need to do post-sale repair work to keep our customers paying. Vehicles are always going to need repairs, period. There's no way around it. There's no point in trying to sugarcoat this. And an average vehicle on the road today is as old as it's ever been. The average age of a vehicle on the road today is 11.6 years. That honestly says an enormous amount about the quality relative to previous generations of vehicles of what's on the road today. Vehicles are made better than they've ever been made. They have fewer major problems. 11.6 is the longest it's ever been. An average auto repair bill is still between $500 and $600 in the retail world. The percentage of U.S. drivers today that are estimated to defer or neglect recommended maintenance and repairs is 33%. How do you think that applies in the buy here, pay here world? More like 133%. Overall, used vehicle quality is generally improved. However, a lot of factors going into, not to mention the fact that vehicles cost way more than they ever have. It's driven an overall increase in vehicle mileage, and that does come home to roost on occasion as we continue to experience more longevity in our fleets. Vehicles are progressively more complex and repair, and that requires technically trained and experienced automotive technicians to handle them with advanced diagnostic training and expensive equipment. And it's more expensive to find the same parts for repairs than it had been previously. Parts seem to get more expensive. Technicians get more expensive. And let's add one that's not on the list. There is a definite technician shortage. In a buy here, pay here service department, reconditioning work represents a significant portion of the total work done by that shop. Now, those repairs are primarily paid for by the company. Now, if you think about all the different types of work that goes through a buy here, pay here service department, you've got reconditioning, policy, and warranty expenses. Those are all paid by the company in one guise or another. They're all paid by the company. It's only a small portion of our total work is actually paid for directly by the customer. That's customer pay work, which congratulations if you get it. If you finance customer repairs and actually collect it, even a bigger congratulations for that. And collecting deductibles or the service meeting it, customer meeting us halfway in repairs, those are also a big part of it too. But if we did our jobs right, then our customer base has a limited ability to pay for unexpected repairs, because not because we overburden the customer, but because we maximize the cash flow in every active account, just like we're supposed to. And we typically have a limited capacity for paying for outside service work, getting paid outside service work. We just don't have the space for it. That's what I mean by limited capacity. I mean, getting people to come in and bring us work is actually less difficult than finding the space, the time, and the expertise to handle it. We just seem to have, believe me, we fill all the capacity that's available in our typical buy here, pay here service department. Buy here, pay here shops typically don't and shouldn't upsell the customer. again, that doesn't mean that we don't charge an appropriate amount for service work. That's not what I mean. What a typical buy here, pay here shop does is they minimize the average repair order, or ARO, by focusing on just what needs to be fixed and not adding things that aren't, and if it's not broke, don't fix it. And a big problem that a lot of dealers have is they come from a retail environment where the service department might very well have carried the entire dealership. And they expect their statements, their financial statements, to reflect that the service department makes a profit. But in a buyer pay here world, that's not real. That's not directly real. Indirectly, very real. But the difference lies in the final bullet, and that is comparison between a real profit center in the retail world where you have outside customers paying for service work versus a cost center in the buy here, pay here world. A buy here, pay here service department is fundamentally a cost center, and it should be managed as such. So what does that mean? Well, a cost center means that it's about speed and efficiency and cost control. The main objective of a cost center is to balance cost with production time, and you want to maximize both the quality and quantity of production within that framework, where speed, efficiency, and cost control are the watchwords. You want to eliminate downtime with efficient scheduling, oversight, and parts ordering processes. Service contributes indirectly to the overall operating profit of the business by getting the most out of the dollars and time that are spent, and by providing cost-effective post-sale repair support to the finance company. So in buy here, pay here service operations, there's a few keys. One is controlling parts costs. And I will tell you from our Service 20 group experience, there is no substitute for taking what you pay for your parts to heart, taking it seriously, and working to minimize this expense as much as possible. There's an enormous amount of markup on parts out there, and it's kind of a moving target when you're dealing with outside providers, outside parts vendors, things like that. It's really difficult to know just what's capable, what's possible, what you're capable of, because it's a moving target and no one ever tells you what the finish line looks like. Controlling your parts cost is extremely important. That's where you've got to get out and shop. You've got to call multiple vendors and look for the best price, but you also need to weigh it against turnaround time and service. There is a cost associated with providing good customer service, and to an extent, we've got to be willing to pay that. But there is a point beyond which we're not willing to pay when we're not getting demonstratively better service, but we're paying more for it. And let's face it, the online parts distributors are getting more and more efficient at this on a daily basis. We need to dial in on our inventory acquisition methods. And I know I'm picking a wonderful time for us to do that when we're dealing with the carpocalypse out there right now, where there's just not enough inventory to go around. We are struggling to meet demand. I get that, but it's not going to last forever. And being sharper and smarter about how, where, and with whom you purchase is going to pay you big dividends down the road. You want to maximize your technician productivity, efficiency, and proficiency. You want to maintain a constant throughput in your service department, and that means eliminating downtime and being consistent with both expectations and results. Ultimately, the recon team has to keep pace with sales. And I know that that's a moving target as well. I mean, when they have a 10-car weekend that may take the shop most of the week to catch that up, everybody understands that. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the scenario where you don't keep pace with sales. That's what you've got to do. You've got to maintain a constant throughput so that what we're producing out of that shop is consistent. But we can't be consistent without quality inventory acquisition methods. We have to emphasize quality control and reduce comebacks. Everyone should play a part here and everyone should be held accountable. And you want to teach customers, and this is a difficult one, I will grant you, but you want to teach your customers to take ownership and responsibility for those repair issues. It's a day-by-day, case-by-case, customer-by-customer event. To do this, it will pay you dividends. I'm not going to deny that it's a challenge. So let's talk about each one of these in a little bit of detail. Controlling parts cost. Every shop is vulnerable to inefficiencies when it comes to vendor management. It's easy to get comfortable with a vendor. And the reason it matters so much on parts is that we are buying parts all the time for all of our vehicles. And that small changes, when a high volume like this is considered, small changes with high volume recurring expenses, those make for a large impact on the bottom line. We're talking a lot of cash here. Think about the classic example of my recon goes up $100 times 50 units a month times 12 months a year. Unless my math's off, I think that's $60,000. In the case of reconditioning, I promise you it wasn't money that was budgeted. And then all of a sudden we're looking for 60 grand that's not there anymore. And parts cost is more than just the money. Delivery time factor has a cost associated with it as well. Many parts are warrantied. Don't automatically just buy a new one without checking first. A lot of the brick and mortar places will go over and above to warranty their parts because they want to protect the business relationship. They're already at a disadvantage compared to the Rock Autos of the world or the Amazons of the world. Where they can win is on customer service, warranties, quick turnarounds, things like that. No one should be paying core sharings in most cases. Admittedly, there's going to be a couple where you're not going to be able to do anything about, but for the most part, you shouldn't be paying for cores. You should have a core bank. They should be netting them out on your invoices. It makes accounting so much easier. Prices for your parts and sublet work should be consistently shopped for vendor price creep. I don't have a problem when a vendor sits down with me and says, you know, David, we're going to have an increase in some of our parts. Some of them are going to be 10, maybe even 12% price increase, and we'll talk about it and see what can be done. That's one approach. That's the preferred approach. Be honest with me. I get that there's varying economic conditions out there that cause component prices to go up or down, but up. I get it. Don't just raise the prices on me and hope I won't notice, because we will. Also, when it comes to controlling parts cost, who orders parts? Now, do you have a dedicated parts person, or have you fallen into a relationship with a brick and mortar parts house where they're providing employees for you? I've done it both ways. And both ways have their advantages and their disadvantages. Generally, you aren't getting a free employee from a third-party parts provider. You're not. It's simply on their payroll and you're paying a premium for parts for that. And as long as you know it going in, you can still get value out of that relationship, out of that arrangement. But don't expect them to be free. Don't expect any of the services they give you to be gratis. They are in business to make a profit. There's nothing wrong with that. Having a dedicated parts person who's responsible for shopping parts the way you want them shopped and are acquiring them the way you want them to be acquired generally saves you money. We have seen this across the board in all the service groups that we've run over the years, and I'll tell you consistently, having your own in-house parts people, it just pays off more than having a third party. But you can make the third party like the AutoZone or the Napa or the Advanced Auto Parts employee who's working as your parts person. As long as things are clear about expectations and costs, and you know that you're not necessarily going to get the best price compared to doing it yourself, you're paying for the privilege of not having to. Then you got to weigh things out. But who orders your parts and how they're ordered is really, really important. Shop your vendors. Do not fall into the trap of just ordering from the same vendor over and over and over because they're quick or because they're convenient. Believe me, they're going to raise the price on you. National brick and mortar parts vendors such as your AutoZones, Advance, Napa, etc., O'Reilly's, they provide a very valuable resource for you, not to be diminished. Do they have it on the shelf and are able to get it turned around and to you right away? Yeah, you know what? There's times you need to order the part under those circumstances. Can they work out relationships with you for consignment parts? Can they help you get it access to shop tools, diagnostic equipment, things like yes, yes, and yes. All these things come into play, so don't abandon these guys. But there has to be a two-way street on this. We can't be supporting both their volume goals as well as their profitability goals. It's got to be one or the other. And we're a volume customer for those guys. So the national brick and mortar parts vendors really come into play. They're still important. In-house partnerships, I kind of alluded to that on the previous slide, but this one's very important to take into account that you are not getting anything for free. They're not doing any favors on this, but that doesn't mean that the relationship doesn't pay off. It just means you're not getting it for free. You're paying for it. Online parts ordering. Okay. Let's say that you're using some software that has built-in online parts ordering and you're using that. Are you paying more than you should be? I hate to say this, but yeah, you probably are. I had a dealer in a service group a few years ago, ran an experiment. They had two service writers. They were both very high volume, but they had two service writers. One ordered everything online. The other one ordered exclusively through picking
David,
up the phone and calling. Yeah.
I lost your sound.
What about my sound?
I cannot hear you at all.
Fabulous.
Oh, you're back. That's so weird. Start over on this slide, I think.
Okay. Oh, that's so frustrating.
Sorry.
Well, you didn't do it. All right, so we've got national brick and mortar parts vendors such as the AutoZone, Advanced Auto Parts, Napa, O'Reilly's. They provide an important and valuable service to us. They're local. They can get you a part right away as long as they have it in stock. They can give you insights into getting new shop equipment, diagnostic tools. They have resources for that. They're also a good source for finding training and things of that nature. There's classes that put on. I know AutoZone used to put my techs through classes on a regular basis. So these things can come in handy. In-house partnerships, generally, like I said, our service group dealers have gotten away from having the AutoZone or Napa people in-house because they found they could do it better themselves, but that doesn't mean there's not value to it. It's simply a value that you have to measure all the aspects to get an accurate ROI. Online parts ordering, it's a challenge because you don't know if you're getting the best price or not, and I can tell you you're probably not. There could be a pretty significant difference in cost between ordering online and picking up the phone and contacting your vendors. Particularly if you're using local brick and mortar, there just seems to be a more flexible approach at the store level than there is through your contracted price levels. There's also pros and cons of buying parts online. Buying parts online will typically get you the lowest possible price on a part until you consider shipping. And where places like Rock Auto of the world will eat you up is on the shipping charges. Now, you can get around that by being smart and by grouping your stuff together in as few shipments as possible to minimize the shipping cost. Another eminent player in the parts ordering world is, no surprise to anyone, Amazon's getting into this, and they're getting into it big time. Amazon's figured out how to do prime delivery. Same day, next day, 2-day delivery is pretty much ubiquitous these days. There's a lot of benefit to that. Now, here's the cost though. When I've got an angry customer in the shop and I need a part 15 minutes ago, I'm not going to one of the online houses to get it. I'm just not. I'm going to go to brick and mortar, and I know I'm going to pay a little bit more, but I'm paying for the guy down the street's going to have me my part in less than 10 minutes. That's what I'm paying for, and I'm fine with that. So when you're comparing costs, you have to understand that there is sometimes a diminished customer service aspect to online parts ordering. Rebates versus bottom line pricing. Should you take the rebate deal? Well, it depends. Should you not take the rebate deal and focus just on bottom line price? That also depends. Both methods are available, particularly from all the big parts houses. It really comes down to what your ownership goals are. And I'm not going to comment any further on that. Parts inventory and accounting. Okay. Maintaining a parts inventory at the buy here, pay here shop, I believe, is a mistake. We can use just-in-time inventory principles. We can order parts, have them delivered. They're going to be sorted by stock number. We will be able to get them to the vehicle in question, and they will be all sublet tickets for us rather than having them come in and out of parts inventory. Now, there are some exceptions to that, and the biggest one is when you strip cars for parts. There's a legitimate argument to do this, and you can save a lot of money, but it's really important you do it right. You know, if you're doing that, these parts have to go through parts inventory. There needs to be an adjustment made that's appropriate to the value of the parts. We need to make sure that if a vehicle is being, let's say a repossessed vehicle is coming back and we're going to take that vehicle for parts, absolutely, positively, 100% of the time, we're taking that vehicle in full satisfaction of the debt. We're not going to report the customer as owing anything other than a zero balance after that point. You can't have your cake and eat it too, but I understand that stripping cars for parts. Now, you need to understand it takes storage space, it takes time, and if you're going to do it right. You need to have a parts inventory system. Otherwise, believe me, stuff's going to walk off of those vehicles. And by walk off, I don't mean theft necessarily. I do mean theft, but I don't mean it necessarily, not exclusively. I also mean it's real easy to go out and grab an alternator off a vehicle and put it on the vehicle you're working on, and magically no ticket was ever generated. There's no record of the work being done. There's no invoice. There's no part ticket, anything. So look, if you're going to maintain a parts inventory, and I strongly encourage against it, keep it limited. I mean, oil filters, wiper blades, honestly, though, I wouldn't even inventory the wiper blades, but keep it limited. Otherwise, if you're stripping cars for parts, like if you take a transmission out, well, you need to put a value on it, put it parts inventory, and that needs to be an internal part, not a sublet part. If you're going to do it right, do it right. So let's talk about inventory acquisition and buying vehicles. Best things we can do to improve cash flow in the service department is to buy inventory properly. It's also the most challenging aspect of our business. And it's got the most far-reaching impact of anything that we do in the buy here, pay here model. It affects everything. Good vehicles are easy to sell, they're easy to service, and they're easier to collect. Bad vehicles are the opposite, because everything ultimately comes back to the car. So we have a really tough job, and I love when I talk to salespeople around the industry and they complain about the inventory. Do you have any idea how difficult it is to acquire this inventory? No, they don't. I recommend that you kind of take your salespeople through the buying process and let them spend a little time working with the buyers, going to the auctions, checking out repo vehicles so they get a appreciation, but I digress. Finding the right vehicle for the right price in an acceptable condition takes a lot of work. Where I see dealers mess up these days is they still, even in August of 2020, they're still thinking they can just buy inventory at the local auctions. Look, there is not enough inventory to go around right now. There certainly isn't enough quality inventory. New car dealers are becoming used car dealers because they don't have anything to sell. It takes a lot of work. You've got to work harder. You have to look further afield. And for you old school dealers out there who think that you need to see and touch and in some cases smell the vehicles you're buying, no, actually you don't. Get online and start looking for vehicles outside your comfort zone. You need to do this. The people like TradeRev, ACV, there's another one, Backlot, I think is what it's called, but there's lots of options out there where they stand behind, they work with you, they've got a good arbitration process. Buy these vehicles online because you can't be in two places at once. You need to be looking. You need to be going to your local auctions, looking at what's available on the street. You need to be talking to other dealers to maybe buy some of their inventory, whatever it takes, because finding that inventory is a big, big challenge for us. Bad buys and rejects, look, they happen. You're better off calling it what it is. We made a bad buy and wholesaling it out. I'm not saying that every vehicle can't be fixed, because they can, but there is a point beyond which it's not worth it to keep a reject vehicle. But I will also admit that that moving target's getting pushed further out, because finding a vehicle to replace it is not a guarantee. Just like a repo. Should we be reconditioning every repossessed vehicle that fits the guidelines, or do some of them not really fit the guidelines? It's tough to replace those vehicles today. You're probably inclined to keep them. Your inspection process. Don't cut corners here. We need to have a legitimate, thorough inspection process. Check this vehicle out, do the checklist, figure out what it's going to need. You're never going to identify problems in your buying process if you don't do this. You're not going to ever have consistent throughput and quality control if you don't do this. Buying vehicles and inspecting and reconditioning cannot be a seat of the pants affair. And you have to factor transportation and cost and time for finding vehicles outside your comfort zone, like I just got done recommending. You have to compare that to a limited local selection and the cost associated with that. I don't think any dealer can afford to not look at under every rock for a vehicle right now. So now we move into maximizing productivity, efficiency, and proficiency. There's a lot of measures here, excuse me. Let's start with efficiency. It's a standard technician efficiency number, and that's the flat rate hours produced divided by the clock hours worked. You should always have your techs punch in and punch out. You need that for workers' comp and insurance reasons, and just general, you were here. I'm not saying you got to pay them by the hour, because you don't with technicians, and I tend to be a flat rate guy myself. But with this ratio of efficiency, it should be in the 125 to 130%, depending on whether you're using factory or non-factory time. How do you get to being that efficient? Well, they've got to be good at what they're doing, and you have to work to eliminate downtime wherever possible in your process. Otherwise, they won't be efficient. Productivity is the actual number of clocked hours worked divided by the total clock hours available. So let's say they work 8 hours in a day. That means they got 8 hours available. The denominator in this is 8. That's a tough one. it's a tough one to measure without having them punch in and out on each job, which I believe gets counterproductive, but it's a standard measure in the industry, and that's in the 80 to 85% range. Technician proficiency, that's flat rate hours divided by actual clock hours worked, and that's the 100 to 120% range. Very similar to efficiency. It really comes down to the difference in the productivity measure too, but ultimately it's about how you measure it, be consistent, and then use it. Efficiency is about how well a technician beats the book. Proficiency is it measures hours worked versus hours available, and it's the best measure of a technician's use of time. Productivity is about how much of their day is actually spent working on active tickets. So that kind of defines these three things and why all three things are looked at in a conventional shop environment. What you as management can do to help is to assign jobs out to people who can do the jobs and making sure that you're eliminating dead time between jobs. So effective communication is critical, and minimizing downtime plays right into that. Separate customer work from reconditioning. In a lot of shops, they've got two different types of techs working on this because it's two different types of work. Customer work is much more diagnostic in nature than a reconditioning ticket. A reconditioning ticket, I mean, let's face it, we're doing the same dozen or so repairs multiple times. So same thing applies to separating the inspection and checklist from reconditioning. This eliminates the problem of a flat rate tech doing their own checklist and padding their own paycheck with work that they're good at. If you separate the checklist from the reconditioning work, then the guys doing the work are following a checklist, hanging the parts. It's about speed and efficiency. They don't wait for parts. They're not standing around, and they are able to crush the book because they don't figure out what's wrong. They just need to, here's the list, here's the basket of parts, there's no waiting. You want to only start reconditioning work once all your parts are in, if at all possible. Believe me, the other way is not as productive, and it also leads to inspect, fix, inspect, fix, inspect, fix, which takes longer and makes your bill higher. Multiple lifts are a great idea for customer care techs, and it's optimal, honestly. It's not always possible due to space limitations, but a customer care technician will have to wait for parts, just the nature of the beast. So it's nice that they're able to work on another job while they're waiting on another one. Use inventory tracking tools so that techs know which job is next without interrupting management. There's lots of ways to go about it. There's low tech, high tech. There's things through like Rapid Recon, which is a great product. There's also the standard inventory control board. You move your vehicles around on a magnetic board, but it's whatever method you use something so that everybody knows what's going on and they don't have to say, oh, what's my next car, boss? No, they know it's there. It's assigned. And posting your productivity, efficiency, and proficiency metrics daily and month to date. Also, the biggies, number of units produced, however you're incentivized, whatever KPIs you use for your service department, make sure you're using those and talking to your team about them. Post these numbers. Maintaining a consistent throughput. Well, unless otherwise advised by management, that recon team should work on vehicles in stock number order. Do not let your team cherry pick to hit a number. It will always come back to bite you. You know what happens if they cherry pick vehicles for a couple of months to get more units out? Then around month 3, they have nothing but project vehicles to work on. And that's going to take a lot of time. It's going to take a lot more money, and you're going to be frustrated because they're not going to be able to keep pace with sales. The best remedy for everyone is to take them in stock number order. Now, who changes that order? Not the shop. I'm out of trucks on the front line and I've got 2 new trucks that came in, well, those just went to the top of the list because I don't have any trucks on the front line, but I'm making that decision, not my service team. I don't want them to be able to cherry pick. It will always come back to bite me. Communication between sales and service management is essential to maintaining the right inventory mix on the sales lot. We have to talk about things. We've got to say, hey, I'm out of vans. Hey, I'm out of 4-wheel drive pickups. Hey, I've got nothing but Malibus out front. You have to keep up on your posting and of your closing out your repair orders. And this is both the shop personnel, service writers, and accounting. They have to work together on this. It's in everybody's interest to make sure that we stay on top of this information. Stay on top of your parts people and your vendors. This is where cash leaks out of the business. We get sloppy, we don't pay attention to details, and we don't price check, and that's where we end up paying too much. Watch your technicians' time, and you want to look for ways that eliminate obstacles that prevent better production. Maybe they need better tools. Maybe they need, we need to move their workspace around. Maybe we need to work harder to make sure that they're getting a vehicle with the parts in hand. Maybe they need another lift. Maybe we need, there's a lot of, maybe need another technician. But watch their time and look for ways to eliminate those obstacles. Quality control and reducing comebacks. Well, look, you can't proofread your own written work, and techs shouldn't QC their own cars. I'm sorry. I'm not saying you need a dedicated QC inspector, but larger shops should probably have that, and they can justify it. But even smaller shops, look, have your salespeople drive the cars when they come out of the shop. Why not? They should be driving them anyway to make sure they know what to sell. They should be familiar with what they have. So those vehicles should go through a checklist. Post reconditioning, sales should be checking them out. They should be driving them. They should be checking to make sure they're merchandised properly, and that it helps us foster communications. Comebacks, on the other hand, it's really important to lay out here that comebacks are not always the technician's fault. They're not. Sometimes cars just break, and I'm not pointing a finger at the tech when the car comes back, usually. I am pointing a finger at the fact that comebacks are always a customer service issue. From that customer's perspective, they are rapidly losing confidence in the vehicle they just purchased. So I'm not interested in punishing technicians. I'm interested in taking care of customers. Now, if a training issue comes up where we're seeing consistency that, hey, we seem to be missing something, we seem to be not doing this type of repair, okay, it's time for a training issue. It's you address it as training. But ultimately, for quality control and reducing comebacks, the watchwords are inspect what you expect. Teaching customers to take ownership and responsibility for their repair issues. Oh boy, is this one a tough one. But I'm telling you, the as is, you bought it, it's your problem approach doesn't work in buy here, pay here. But neither does fix everything. The answer between the two is to find a blend, a balance, where we're trying to meet in the middle, and we want to find a way to maximize that customer's financial participation in their repair cost. We don't want anybody to have a completely free repair. But the flip side of just saying, hey, as is, this is what it costs, how are you going to take care of that charge, and not having any other alternatives, that's not the way either. That just gets you a lot of early repos. Because let's face it, our customers don't have the ability for a $5, $6, $8, $10, $1,200 repair bill. They don't have it. They certainly don't have it in an unanticipated or emergency basis. They don't have this. So you want to find a balance. You want to find blend. Like so many other things in buy here, pay here, it is about finding balance. So we've got a few types of charges that are out there. Look, I believe everybody ought to be offering a warranty at this stage of the game. Warranty repairs are easy. If it's covered, you collect the deductible and fix it. Don't split hairs with the customer. Don't try and find ways to creatively not cover a repair. it's in your best interest. Let me give you a little example. Say you got a customer who's out of warranty. They need transmission work. Well, you tell them, great, it's going to be $850. You're out of warranty. How do you want to take care of that? How they typically going to take care of it is throw the keys at you and walk. So you repossess that vehicle. What's the first thing you do? You fix the transmission. But now you're going to have to reload all your overhead into that vehicle and resell that vehicle to someone you don't know anything about. Why didn't we just help the customer who had it? It was a proven commodity, was a proven payer. Why didn't we help that customer stay in it? I mean, that just seems to be common sense, because think about it. The first thing you're going to do when you repossess a mechanical repo is you're going to make it not a mechanical repo anymore. You're going to fix it. Policy and goodwill repairs, those are harder because they're not covered. They're not automatic like a warranty repair should be. But every one of you does this. You all do policy and goodwill repairs. But it requires an assessment of cost and benefit and the customer's ability to pay. You can't just assume you're not going to have to reinvest in the portfolio, and that's exactly what this is, an investment. A consistent approach is your best answer. Don't be afraid to ask customers to pay for their maintenance, but expect to have to make some deals. Again, finding that balance, finding that pressure point, and working your way towards a mutually agreeable solution is your best approach. I don't have a problem with side notes. I have a huge problem with repair side notes that you don't collect. So putting a side note together without the input from the finance company is silly, because the finance company should be the one collecting it. Your collectors need to collect side notes. And if you're going to do side notes, you should expect the customer to pay. And if they don't pay, well, you write it off. And there's no downside to the customer except they don't get another. Side notes that you can't or don't collect are just a big waste of everyone's time, and it hurts your credibility with the customer. So in general, here's some best practices. One is use a reconditioning checklist to document your pass-fail items and include that in the vehicle jacket. I do not recommend giving that checklist to the customer. I know there's some dealers who disagree with me on this, but the checklist, it's about our process. It's not about what we give to the customer. You want to use a lot ready checklist to review post-recon vehicles for quality. That gets sales team buy-in into this process, and it eliminates a lot of, oh, the shop puts out a bunch of junk, or these salespeople expect these to be new cars. You've heard them both. Require your customers to pay something for each non-warranty repair. Contracts perform better when the customers consistently participate financially in the repair process. That's an established truth. Return your vehicles to finance for customers to pick them up. That's assuming that logistically it makes sense, but return your vehicles to finance. Don't have them pick them up at the shop. Have them pick them up at the finance office. This ensures that cars aren't leaving without necessary communication with the customers. And even small dealers need to be aware of the technician shortage that we are facing today. It is rampant. We cannot find enough tech talent. You need to keep the ones you have. You need to take care of your guys and gals out there working on your vehicles, and you're always looking for more talent. You need to always keep your ear to the ground. Always look to hire and improve your team, because I can assure you the other shops are doing the same thing, and they're talking to your people. I want to thank you all for taking the time to hear me out on this educational session. I really appreciate your participation in this process and in our NIADA 2020 virtual convention. If you have any questions or concerns, feel free to reach out. David B at NIADA.com, and I look forward to seeing you all again real soon.